Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review episodes 4 through 6 of Power Rangers in Space. Yeah, really some things here and there that I could probably just clear up from the last episode, the last review. Didn't expect that to go the way it did. Uh, really, when it came down to just like people just interested in Power Rangers in Space. I just really thoroughly enjoy the series, and really, there were times where there was like, man, there's a lot going on all in these episodes. I'm just like, oh my god, there's a lot of technical stuff. Especially now because they only had it really in the pilot. Really, uh, they had a much more emphasis on the galaxy gliders, which I just called it like an astro board or something like that, because seemingly everything was called like astro for like most the stuff. Like the astro blasters, I believe, is what they end up calling the guns in this show. But Spiral Sword uh, was to be, I guess, Andros's weapon of choice. Uh, Andromeda's ship evidently is called the Sphinx ship. I found that out. And I also found that the ships that the Quantrons are to have are called Velocity Fighters. Somewhere sounding somewhere like that is what I ended up having to search a while to find. Um, but hey, man, like mistakes can get made because I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, well, you didn't say this name of such and such in this, and it's bound to happen. I know that's always a thing, and some people might be like, "Did you even watch the episodes?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did," but like, there's a lot to just jumble around through 3 episodes. It's always not an easy thing to like keep this all in mind. When also like I'd also just reviewed Heels. Like I went through all these episodes, and then I'm like, "Oh crap, a new episode of Heels is out," so I have to cover that first, and then like this just got like, okay, now let's get into this finally. um in the first 3 episodes, Andros is to talk about his home planet, which is KO35, and we actually have an episode of KO35 in one of these episodes here, which I'm like, okay, in the back of my mind, I'm like, hopefully they have done an episode talking about KO35. Supposedly, Ecliptor had mentioned that that place had been destroyed, and I was kind of wondering if they're going to get further in depth about that, or like, wouldn't it have been interesting to eventually like have a certain amount of rangers that go and maybe try to prevent certain things like that from happening, like trying to prevent the destruction of KO35, is if that was to really have happened. Um, but hey, like interestingly enough, from the very first episode, I also talked about that. Like, hey guys, there's going to be a Power Rangers and uh, Ninja Turtles, the next mutation team up here. And like technically I was right, but I didn't realize it was going to be episode 4. I was like, oh yeah, I guess this does happen really quickly, because maybe I just missed something in the last episode or something like that. Because really, the last episode to me was, because I was watching this episode and I was thinking, did I miss something from the last episode? Like, did I like, did I not see something? Because it felt like there was just this, like, I guess there was like a really smooth opening of this 4th episode, but I was like, did I miss something? Was there something there that I just didn't get to? I don't know. It just seemed goofy to me. Um, but yeah, so going, of course, in episode 4, it's the shell shocked episode. We bizarrely have a monster in this episode for no real reason, called Electro Tramp, which didn't need to be here. Like, really, we could have saved this monster for some other episode, because it just wasn't needed. Plus, there was so much going on with the Turtles and so much going on with the Power Rangers. It was kind of like, why have this monster here? Uh, the sixth or the fifth episode is to concentrate on KO 35, and I believe the episode after that is to uh God, it's coming to me. Um what is the what is the sixth episode? Give me a second here. Let me pause for a second. Yeah, this is to be like kind of, it feels like a Star Trek Next Generation kind of mission on the sixth episode, where there is to be like this satellite that goes out of orbit and crashes onto this ship, and is to be them having this space program called Nasada needing these discs. That's what it is. I'm like, what is the sixth episode? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's the Goofy Alpha episode. So yeah. So, anyways, these were kind of fun episodes. Maybe the shell shock one, but I also liked that we had Andros going back to KO 35. Honestly, without the Rangers, which I was just kind of like, okay, like maybe there should always be a rule that a Ranger shouldn't go at it alone. Because Ghostbusters technically has that rule when you watch like Extreme Ghostbusters, where Egon was to go and try to like and go and bust a ghost alone. Uh, like I know, like you could say that, but then also, how many numerous missions did Jason just go on his own? Like, yeah, I'm just gonna go and take everybody down because I'm Jason, and like he would have his own little solo missions, and like he would go and take out Goldar or go and take out whatever the enemy was for that episode, and so every once in a while, the Red Ranger has to do his own mission. Like we had Jaden, who was to be like doing his own thing for a while until he desperately needed like help eventually. So, and then eventually got replaced for what, 2 3 episodes, which was just garbage. But it is what it is. Freaking female lead Power Ranger. That's all I want in my life. They can do that whenever the heck next Power Rangers projects is going to be. Like, not that I'm trying to root for anything or whatever. Like, I just want something to change. Like, I just desperately want something to change. Something to be different. Give me a goofy theme that I could just be like, oh, okay, all right. Like, they're trying something new. I could be okay with that. So, let's go out of our way to be okay, and let's go into spoiler territory, and let's get into that coveted doubled 5 time again. To go into spoiler time, it's about time again to spoil this episode. I just realized that my face is getting all red. That's probably because it's like, yeah, you should have went to bed like, ooh, gee golly, an hour ago. Because I'm getting to the point of just like, okay, this is like well beyond when you should have been doing reviews for. But I'm hoping I have an extra video in the bank, so eventually I'll have to do less tomorrow. So let's hope for that. So, so this first episode is to be shell shocked, where we're just to bizarrely see just the turtles, the Ninja Turtles, just popping from out of the sewer. A lot of people may not know what the heck this. They all of a sudden, weirdly enough, have a female Ninja Turtle. What the heck is this? Because maybe somebody popped in and saw Power Rangers in space and never saw Ninja Turtles: The New Mutation. Well, Venus is to be this like this Ninja Turtle who had come from these monks, and so Venus had just decided to be incorporated with the turtles, and I guess they couldn't figure out a wildly different color combination for Venus to have compared to everyone else, so she just went with light blue. I'm like, okay, female turtle, all right. So, just to change it up, like Venus isn't a part of the actual like Ninja Turtles family, but eventually she becomes one because she's just as a mutated turtle as these guys are. So, like, eventually, just she gets mixed up, but she gets mixed into the fold. I think this is also around the time, I don't know for sure. Like, I didn't see what Michelangelo was wielding, but I don't think it was nunchucks. Uh, Plus, I don't really think they much go into most of the turtles' weapons, anyways. Like, you see a Donatello side getting popped out. You see Leonardo's sword getting to be like kind of chucked out. But not much weapons of the turtles being like put out there. I wonder why. Uh, but anyways, maybe they just probably didn't have most of the equipment or gear for these, so you just kind of like you see them, but that's about it. So, anyways, pushing on. So, Andromeda is to appear with all of her Quantrons and everything like that to bizarrely have mind control over the Ninja Turtles. I'm like, so wait a minute, why is it that like Andromeda can do this for this one special occasion, but any other time she can't do this? I'm a little confused. Why couldn't she use this ability on the Power Rangers and easily beat them then? Am I overthinking this? Is this just like it's just a way to do the crossover, man? Don't think harder than that. But I'm just like, why not just put this spell over the Power Rangers, easily beat them, because they would be within you, but technically, uh, like meaning they would be on their side. But then eventually, some weird cosmic event would just change them back to be the Power Rangers anyways, because that's what technically happens to the Ninja Turtles. In this one, they go into this like magnetic field that's going on in space, which bizarrely just changes them back to normal. But like we have this time where the Ninja Turtles are villains. What a good way to try to sell another show, Power Rangers in space. Hey guys, we're gonna make these crossover people villains. So that way it looks bad on their show. Like, hey, like Power Rangers fans are just gonna see these Ninja Turtles as villains, but they're actually not. They're actually heroes. But we're just gonna mix it up to where they have to be like a villain technically, but then they'll change and then they'll be turtles again, and like everyone will be like, "Yay, pizza!" That doesn't even happen in this show. It sucks. There was no pizza party. I freaking just saw the Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and Batman and Ninja Turtles were sharing pizza, but not in this thing. Like there was also that goofy thing at the end where the turtles were like, "Hey, if you ever want to come into our sewer," and the Power Rangers like, "Yeah, I'm never gonna go in their sewer." Like, I'm never gonna freaking go into a sewer in my life. Like I fought some horrible monsters that may like smell like a sewer, but I'm never gonna go in one to find these turtles. Like, hey, if you ever want to just make it back to, if you ever just want to come up onto the ship and wash off that sewer smell off of you, like come on down. But we're not gonna go to the sewer. But anyways, uh, so yeah, so the Power Rangers are after the Ninja Turtles have been brainwashed. The Power Rangers are going off and fighting this Electro Tramp character. For all of a sudden, the Ninja Turtles to arrive to easily take this monster down. The monster leaves, and the turtles aren't like clapping together cowabunga, because I guess that won't happen in this show, because maybe there's some stuff that they can't actually do in this show. I don't know. But then like weirdly we have the turtles because I think this was probably a thing in the Next Mutation show where they like do like Mean Green and all this weird stuff, but it just seems weird for them to be doing some like certain catchphrases and goofy things here. I don't know. But so eventually like the Ninja Turtles were to mention, uh, weirdly enough, when they were in their environment, that supposedly the Power Rangers were make believe and that they were comic books or whatever. But then supposedly the Ninja Turtles eventually go to where the Power Rangers are because they actually do exist, and all of a sudden, like, the Power Rangers are like, oh my god, like, Ninja Turtles, like, this is great. So all of a sudden, the Power Rangers take the Ninja Turtles and just, like, showcase them throughout the whole entire ship. There's not one nook or cranny that these Ninja Turtles don't know about. I guess there is to be this one shoot thing that all these Power Rangers are consistently used through this episode that is to eventually lead them to be able to get onto their morphing sequences fairly easy, or to be able to get onto their galaxy gliders, or I guess to also be able to get into their little, like, ship thing that I'm not going to have the exact name of. So, like, the Power Rangers are just, like, showing off the Ninja Turtles to the ship, and Andros is the only one kind of questioning the Ninja Turtles. Like, it seems like he has some kind of, like, hey, something is wrong here kind of sense to him. Like, not only does he have the magical moving power or whatever, maybe he has this, like, I have a disturbance in the force kind of feeling also here, weirdly enough. So Andros is starting to ask, like, why is it that all the Ninja Turtles have so many questions about the ship? Like, they want to know every little nook and cranny and piece about it. Because eventually, what ends up happening is the Ninja Turtles go and commandeer the ship by, uh, putting wires and crossing them. All of a sudden, to have the ship all of a sudden sound like the Ninja Turtles do, to where they're like, yeah, like, I'm mean and green and I'm taking over this ship. And so all of a sudden, Andros is to find out what the Ninja Turtles are doing. And so the Ninja Turtles start, like, trying to, like, I think Leonardo busts out a weapon, but that doesn't last very long. Uh, like, Andros starts, like, trying to take out the turtles, and but yeah, so eventually the turtles commandeer the ship, so immediately all the Power Rangers go off to uh, their escape ship to try to fly off, while the turtles are commandeering the ship because the turtles have complete control over this ship, which eventually they transfer that over to Andromeda when Andromeda is transported to the ship. So uh, so now the Power Rangers with their ship are to drive off to this magnetical or magnetic pull of a thing. Like, they had some, like, goofy name for it all, but I'm not gonna go through all that. Like, nah, like, whatever. It's some magnetic pull or pulse or something, that this cosmic event that they end up kind of going through in space, that is to all of a sudden force the turtles into this thing, and Donatello is to try to, like, curve them off of this thing. But eventually that just leads the turtles to eventually have uh, their their magic from them taken. And so all of a sudden, like, the Ninja Turtles are like, whoa, man, like, we're not going to do anything that you say. And so by the time that the turtles start to try and fight Andromeda and Elgar and the the Quantrons, they just teleport and leave. And so that leads to eventually having Andros and everybody making their way back to the ship. We also have the ship who ends up self-destructing because Andromeda, before she leaves, says to have it self-destruct. Weirdly and wildly, Ninja Turtles know the exact place to go and take control back of this ship. And so, I think I have almost everything perfectly down for the most point. Oh, I think the Power Rangers end up going onto some planet and are to try and uh, fight off uh, fight off some Quantrons in this episode, and then the Ninja Turtles are to appear and help them out, and then that's what gains back Andro's trust with the Ninja Turtles. Like, okay, I think you guys are okay now. Like, I think you guys are just like on the mend. So eventually they all go back to the ship and they trade, like, hey, if you guys ever want to be in our world, like, come on back, and so on and so forth. So also the ship is to get back at Donnie for taking liberties and whatever, so she ends up like shocking him, so he gets shocked for a little bit. But yeah, I think that's a bulk of how this all episode ends up playing out. So we go into the next episode, which is the KO 35 episode, or whatever the episode ends up getting titled. So while everyone is to be sleeping, Andros is to be looking for his sister, which is to have supposedly been Corone, I believe is how it's pronounced. Which obviously we will know who actually Corone is actually. Because I actually know who it is, but we'll get to that. So Andros is to be like scouring the galaxy to find where his sister is, and like he ends up replaying a video of like their last events, and bizarrely I'm just like, what point of view is all of this being recorded? Like, it just seems like, is this Andros's memory, and that's like his memory bank is in here, like of what he thought he saw? Like, how is this, like, is one of Andros's family the person that recorded this whole thing? How is it that we're seeing this image here? Or is this taken from Villain's perspective? Because that's the goofy thing in my mind, because it seems that bizarrely we have a villain who ends up grabbing Corone and running off, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, so, like, are we seeing this from the perspective of the bad guy, or what's going on? Anyways, pushing on. So Andros is to like pull open this one little toy, spin it around with his mind, and so like Andros and Corone are having a good time. This toy is to fly off. Andros is to go and get it, and all of a sudden his sister is to be taken, and so all of a sudden, while Andros is rewatching this video to try to figure out who this monsterish being is, Carlos all of a sudden is getting out of bed in the middle of the night, just kind of going like, like, let me see this video so I can just get into this guy's private life, because I guess we should know a little bit more about him. Because eventually Carlos is to admit to Andros later that he saw the video. Hence why even when Carlos was to get injured, Carlos was tempted to want to still help out the Power Rangers because they're a team, and plus, like, Carlos really wanted to help Andros eventually find his sister on this home planet. But so, and Carlos was losing sleep about it. So Andros is to eventually go to KO 35 because supposedly there is to be one life there. So Andros decided, like, okay, while everyone's sleeping, I'm going to sneak to KO 35 and find Corone and like be able to reunite with her. But that just leads us to also have Ecliptor eventually spotting that Andros is at KO 35. So it's like, ha 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 ha, like, I'm going to go and try to get him. So Ecliptor is to eventually appear at KO 35 and to start to battle Andros, because evidently Andros had mentioned that supposedly Ecliptor had made Andros believe that his sister was there because there's one life form, but evidently Andros was wrong. Andros was just suckered in. So we have this really cool spot where all of a sudden Ecliptor is all of a sudden have his head like come off of his body, and so like Andros is not only getting attacked by Ecliptor, but also his flying head. And so it's like, whoa, like this is an interesting match where I think some of this stuff obviously had to be like green screened or whatever, so that way, like probably like Ecliptor's head, like he could easily still battle, um, whatever. Anyways, so Ecliptor regains his head, and so eventually what ends up happening is Carlos is to awake, or to get awake, and so he ends up going down to the surface. And so while Carlos and while Andros are fighting this fight, eventually Carlos is to get injured, and so Andros goes and takes Carlos onto this galaxy glider, goes back off to the ship to eventually get him healed. And so like they have to kind of tell the truth that like uh, that Andros was looking for his sister and that he went down to the home planet and all the kinds of stuff. So and then Carlos mentions that like he saw him do the video and that like they're in this together. So uh like that's what happens at the very tail end of the episode. That's why Carlos did what he did. So all the Power Rangers go down to KO-35 to fight Ecliptor. Eventually, what happens is Ecliptor ends up becoming into gigantic of shape, which is to mean he grows. So eventually, Carlos goes back with the team, and so what ends up happening is the team ends up using their blasters to fire at Ecliptor, and eventually Carlos calls the Astro Megaship to go and fire their blasts at Ecliptor. So, uh, like I think eventually, like Ecliptor is to be called off in this episode, and yeah, because I don't think they end up like doing another Megazord battle where they try to take him out because that would just be a waste of story. But I think Ecliptor ends up going back to normal size and then deciding to get the heck out of there. Uh, so eventually, that's when Carlos confesses to Andros while he's working out about what he saw, videos and stuff like that. And so I think that's really a bulk of the episode. Uh, there is also this one spot in one of these episodes, which I'm not sure where the connection is, but I know it's in one of these episodes. We have Bulk and Skull who are bizarrely looking for alien eggs, and so there's this spot where um, Bulk and Skull are with their professor, and so there's this spot where this professor is to talk about this alien egg, and all of a sudden Bulk I think is maybe a little bit too tired, and or maybe his imagination is growing wild, where all of a sudden like Bulk is to have like this alien egg right in front of him, and this alien egg is to immediately hatch while the professor is talking, and all of a sudden this hand comes out and grabs Bulk in the face, and I'm like, what is this, like the face hugger moment? But like, so all of a sudden, like, Bulk, Skull, and the Presser are all freaking out, but that is all just in Bulk's imagination. There is no alien egg right in front of him, and so eventually that just leads to bizarrely Bulk and Skull and the Professor all eventually going out to this one spot where there is to be a thing that obviously looks like a watermelon, but like eventually they keep like mentioning it's like, oh, maybe it'll hatch soon. Like I think it's rumbling, like I think it made a sound or something. And so uh all of a sudden we have the professor who ends up putting a stethoscope to the watermelon and is like, yeah, I think it's gonna hatch soon. And so all of a sudden we start having Bulk and Skull and the professor all doing hot potato because nobody actually wants to continue to like hold on to it while it's hatching. And so eventually we have it to where they just accidentally just chuck it up in the air to all of a sudden have the watermelon fall onto Bulk's head. And now like the professor is like, oh, it's seedless. And so it's just like Bulk is all of a sudden like spitting these watermelon pieces out of his mouth. And like, yeah, it was a freaking watermelon. It wasn't an alien egg. It was a watermelon. But yeah, so Bulk had to freaking like bear that watermelon onto his head, which was like it's goofy to just have this like imagination of things, but like to like it's also just like man, I wish like the Bulk and Skull stories would have really like gone somewhere where like I don't know if this ever happened between Bulk and Skull, but it would have been cool to just have them be like the inside scoop of people, like to eventually be like a Peter Parker kind of person where they always had the photos of the Power Rangers and what all they do and like they're just like consistently making money off this thing to eventually be the only people that seem to really be connected to the Power Rangers compared to everyone else. Uh, like eventually they try to figure out the whole secret of the Power Rangers, who they actually are and whatever. And it seemed like they got close at some point in time, but really it never actually happened. But I think like them actually making money off of like the Power Rangers and like being like photographers of them or something, where it's like they always have this evidence of like really like Bulk and Skull could have honestly been like the Power Rangers paparazzi because they're basically in the middle of this every single time anyway. So it would have been perfectly like to be putting these characters in this moment where you can like slap photo shoots of everything going on because they would have been the only ones really there watching this thing going on or like really being in the middle of it compared to everyone else. So so this last episode is to weirdly enough uh, be about this satellite that ends up crashing upon this planet. And so all of a sudden we have this space program uh, who is to be called Nasada. So at least it's not like Farscape where they end up calling it Lassa or Lhasa. Um, they call it Lasada. So this so we have Elgar and we have the Quantrons in these Velocifighters, and they end up shooting down this satellite who evidently has a number of years of information. And so Nasada is it called the Power Rangers to do this like Star Trek next generation kind of mission to have the Power Rangers go to this planet to eventually try and get these discs. And the Power Rangers are having to fight to get these discs from Elgar and Astronema and villains. So eventually, once the Power Rangers make it onto this planet, eventually we find out that there is to be a monster there called Clawhammer. And so there's kind of ruckuses and stuff going on, and it's to all eventually be for this character called the Clawhammer, which just looks so goofy. But don't all the monsters look goofy? Real, in all honesty. They're always goofy. They're just like just toss a bunch of things together and it's a monster. But hey, like freaking how many things do they have to like uniquely come up with? It's freaking hard, especially the longer they go about this show. It's still amazing how they're still coming up with something. Like they could have probably continued to just toss the same monsters out and recycled things and called them different like they do sometimes, Dark Spectre. And but hey, freaking that was then. This is now, Dark Spectre. Anyways, so um, hey, freaking a lot of people recycle stuff. Like I don't know how many times I've probably recycled an idea for X amount of time when I do concepts or I do like, hey, this is an interesting thing that I want to completely put together and whichever. So, anyways, so pushing on. So what is to end up happening? Oh, uh, the Quantrons in the Shell Shock episode were to lock up the Power Rangers into one room, and Andros was to use his power, his ability to cut the things that the Power Rangers were to be tied with, which immediately had TJ go and be like, "Hey man, like look." Those things were to use to cut this punch. Like, and it was kind of interesting because I was like, yeah, I think Andros usually uses like his ability to do like little side mission things or little goofy little things, which technically like right into this episode, that's basically what ends up happening. And so Andros, we end up finding out Elgar eventually gets the discs, and the Power Rangers are to eventually be like strapped down to this planet. They're to be like chained down, and so eventually Andros is to use his ability to get the discs out of Elgar's pocket, and eventually Clawhammer is to arrive, and Andromeda is to leave. So because eventually the Power Rangers were to spot the disc, but they didn't completely get the disc because eventually the Power Rangers ended up getting chained to the planet. So, anyways, so Andros is to use his ability to get his blaster so he can blast off these chains and then blast everyone else's chains off. Because while that is to happen, Alpha is taken upon herself to make the the blast the Astro Mega Ship into the Megazord, and so like Alpha is taking on the Clawhammer herself, just like telling the ship what to do, and the ship is doing it, but eventually the Clawhammer is just starting to like take Alpha down, and so Andros goes on and is to blast everybody's chains off, and so they end up trying to like get to the ship and then going in and going to the Megazord, controlling things, so that way they can of course take down the Clawhammer. Because yeah, like Alpha was doing a good enough job, but yeah, like Power Rangers need to take full on control. Like it was interesting to just see the joysticks move while Alpha was doing stuff in her part of the ship. Like it was kind of fun. But eventually, as per usual, Megazord takes down Monster as per usual. Always the way things are go down. Uh, how does this episode really end though? Oh, um, so Andromeda is to ask Elgar about the discs, and so he's to like check his pockets, like, "Oh, are you sure you didn't like have someone else have the discs?" To where all of a sudden Andromeda is to have some torture device for Elgar because of the mistake that he made, which is eventually like Elgar is just a guy who should be tortured anyways. Here is the goofy thing though. So Elgar's like thing that was in the back of his like when he was in the Velocifighter, like obviously that part should have been pushed down or cut off. No, kind of ruined the whole camera effect of like, hey, this should be a glass part, right? But it's not because Elgar and his like big headpiece of a thing. I don't know. Probably should have like figured something out about that, but like I guess they're just like no one will know the difference. It won't matter. Like this is just a side mission deal about satellites being like knocked out. No one's gonna really like. It's not gonna really bug anybody, is it? So yeah, I think I covered everything, but I don't know. There might have been a thing that I got slipped, whichever. Oh, we also got to where we were to see the Power Rangers use uh, their their booster like things where they combined both of their weapons and they combined it with the blaster. I guess that's some like booster weapon thing. Like there's a whole like uh it's not the Quadra Blaster. That's combining all the things together. Um, yeah, it's basically when you attach the Power Rangers weapon onto their blaster, they call it booster mode with all of those. So it's like basically whatever the Power Rangers weapon is with blaster is to just be like, because we have like the Pink Ranger has a satellite stunner, and so the satellite stunner and booster mode is what they just call it when they combine the blaster. I was like, okay, that's a goofy name that I guess I had to figure out there, but yeah, they end up doing that in the episode, kind of combining weapons. Like, hey, that seems kind of cool. But anyways, yeah, I think I said everything. I covered everything. I hope. At least it seems like I kind of went into a little bit quasi detail, but a lot of these episodes were fairly easy to all get out. So without a doubt, if there's anything that I missed, or if there's anything that I didn't cover, I apologize. But otherwise, I think it's about time for me to get the heck out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.